Uh, all right. So far, any doubts? Have you gone through the previous session? It's all about Power BI service. I think it was pretty much clear. We have gone through what is a Power BI service and what are workspaces. We have gone through the access within the workspace and also how to share the reports using the share option by generating a link and also via workspace where you can actually give access to the workspace based upon different levels like member, admin, right? So also before we kind of moved wrap it up last session, I also showed you something called a schedule refresh, I think. Yeah.
Santosh, the access one, I couldn't see it when I practiced actually.
Which
The
one?
difference.
The access one. Uh-huh.
Yeah, access one. Because when I created Guru School Kalpana, that it's directly came access, then which I need to select and give the access and see the difference between three. Member means it's kind of access, isn't? And the viewer and contributor, they won't see the access button. And if you contributor means we see the difference, one more thing. So I didn't see that. That's the only thing I messaged you. I understand what it is, but I couldn't see it practically. That's the only one thing. That's it.
Yeah, actually, I was kind of busy and I was traveling, so even I think
Yeah,
Divya.
that's fine, totally, Santosh. But that's the only doubt. I'm just telling you that I couldn't do it. That could you show me again, or what's did I did anything wrong, or
No,
how
no.
do
So
I
I
need to?
think you have created a workspace. That's what you're saying, right? Let me tell you.
Yeah, I have created a workspace. Yeah.
Okay, let me just open it up in a new incognito so that we can log in. Anybody remember student? Okay. Also, for a couple of people whom I didn't give any feedback on the assignment, will be coming back to you today night. I think it's Divya also. I didn't get much time for the weekend.
Okay.
I will be doing today.
Okay, Sandesh.
Okay.
Didn't.
Okay.
So what Kalpana is saying is that she has created a workspace, okay, with the student ID for sure. I can see
Guru School
Guru Schools
Kalpana.
underscore Kalpana.
Yeah.
So whenever you create a workspace, right, you become
Okay.
the admin of that workspace. Okay, you
Mm.
become the admin of the workspace, and even I am the admin. Let's go back to my account. I cannot see your workspace. Do I see? Guru Schools underscore Kalpana. I don't see. These are all of my workspaces. Okay. You can notice
Yeah.
it is not
Mm.
visible even though I'm an admin in general. I cannot see them. Why? Because whoever creates the workspace, they are the owners of the workspace. Because it's like folder, I told you, right? You created the folder unless or until
Mm-hmm.
you provide the permission, I cannot view it. You getting my point?
Yeah.
So once you
Uh,
understand that, the next
mm-hmm.
question comes. Since you are the admin, you have all the access things. Okay.
Yeah.
You have all the access things.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in order to test, so you're saying I cannot find any difference. So you would find the difference only when you have the second ID to test with, right?
Yes,
Right?
that I didn't understand to whom to select. I
Yeah.
selected you, but
Yeah,
I didn't see that actually.
even you can select me as well, but yeah,
Yeah, I selected.
I cannot see my ID added to this workspace.
Yesterday I did, and I removed it
Oh yeah,
actually.
okay,
As
okay,
a viewer, I added you.
okay, yeah,
Again, I removed it because these three dots, if we click, we can remove, isn't?
yeah,
So
exactly. We can remove it. We can remove it.
yeah, I did
Maybe you have
that
done
because
like this, yeah, like
no,
this.
yeah, yes. Yeah, I got it. So I have to see your name in that. I couldn't see that. So I didn't
Okay,
get actually where I did mistake. So because yeah,
I think this is how you have to do. So you have added,
yeah,
and
I
I've
did
made an
same
admin
exactly. I did the
viewer.
everything is same till now. Yeah.
So once I'm in the viewer, I should be able to access that on my workspace, right? Maybe if I'll just have the view permissions, even though I log into this workspace. Can see Schools underscore Kalpana. Now it is visible.
Yeah. But
And
yesterday I don't know how to check
yeah,
in
you
your
don't have a password of my ID, right? Obviously, you won't be able
yeah,
to check
that's
that.
what I
Yeah,
clearly
yeah,
mentioned in WhatsApp
yeah.
message for you.
So,
Yeah, that's right.
yeah,
Yeah, got it now.
you got it right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So even though you can notice, I'm just having a viewer, so I'm not able to see the additional options that I can give access to somebody else, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
In Viva, we won't see. If you give contributor, we see a view button. If you go a member, we see a access button. That's I remember. Yeah.
Yeah.
It.
And one more thing for others, you can create, your reports under this Guru Schools. I've created a Guru
Yeah.
Schools, so you kind of, add your reports. I think Swapna has added. Okay,
Mm.
good. So,
Even I have added Guru School Kalpana, my report.
uh, you have to add into this Guru Schools workspace by underscore Kalpana name. So maybe I can see you have added into this workspace. So
Oh.
that is the workspace that you have created, and I don't have access. So it's better you
Oh.
provide it under Guru Schools. Okay.
Okay.
Fine. So again, we have seen one thing additionally in the last session, like how to schedule a report, right? Let's
Yeah.
just go
Yeah.
back to, yeah. So we've seen, like, this is, we've gone to this and we have seen a SharePoint related stuff, right? Because SharePoint related stuff, I told you it was on the cloud, and
Mm.
I've showed you like how to schedule a
Schedule
refresh, right?
refresh. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Even we can
So
assign the other people
yeah,
in
right. We have
place of
seen
us.
this
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Mm.
Now we'll go into details of the scheduling of the refresh. So, now you already know like what is the importance of scheduling, right? Or the frequency of the refresh, because every customer wants to see the latest data in their report, right? So that is the main purpose, that we wanted to schedule the report with a refresh frequency, so that they can look into the latest data, right? So let's assume like, I've connected, this is when the source is in the cloud. So when the source is on the cloud, the first thing that we do is, you kind of come here to data source credentials, and you can see, when you come to the data source credentials, you can see the source is SharePoint for this report, and automatically this, usually what happens is when you publish for the first time, this will be in the cross mark. Okay. Well, let us do one thing. Let's demo it. I'll show you what exactly happens here. So SharePoint report. So let's download it and let's re-show you again, because I've cleaned up my machine. So let's go back. So demo SharePoint. So what I'll do is, as you all know, right? We can also download the reports from our workspace, right? If you are having complete access, I can download this file, like this file, download. So when I do this, a .pbx file will be downloaded onto your local machine. That means you have a complete control of the report, to complete access of the report. Okay. I think the sales dashboard, schools. Okay, this actually, this was a sample demo, right? Okay. Fine. Just let me just check the data set. Uh, okay, with all reports. Fine. Let's download that. We have done it anyways. We will go to the download folder. We'll get the SharePoint demo. Let's open it up. Okay. It's as equal to that we have developed a report. So right now I have a Power BX file. So I'll be publishing this report into a different workspace so that I can demonstrate what is happening for the first time. Okay. Let's do it to Guru Schools, right? We have this report. We'll publish it to Guru Schools workspace so that you guys have access to the workspace already. You can also check with your student ID. Okay. So as you can see, this is a sales list. So that means the data source, we can go to the transform data. I mean, data source settings. It's a SharePoint that we are using, right? And what we are using is a sales list, maybe. Okay. We have a couple of visuals as well. So what I'll do is, let me again save it. And now what I'll do is I'll publish it. So as you can see, I can see all the workspaces that I'm having access to. So I'm going to publish it to Guru Schools, right? Once you're done with that, click on OK. Just go back to this and refresh this page so that you will be able to see the latest report. So now you can see this demo under hyphen SharePoint. Let's go to the data set and click on schedule refresh. So first time you have to go to data source credentials so that you can see if the credentials are taking up. So usually what happens if they are not taking up, this option will be cross. So when do you this? I mean, you will find this thing whenever you are logging with some other ID. For example, right now I've logged in with the admin ID and I published the report with the admin ID. Let us say, let's try to log in with your ID because you also have the Guru Schools. And let me refresh this page on student ID and you can see this refresh. Let's go back to schedule refresh. Right now, as there's one more thing you have to note here is since the data set was published by a different email address, right? Admin at the rate R4K5, and now you're logged in the student email address. This is that I mean additional screenshot you will be seeing it. Okay, so this data set has been configured by a different email ID. Would you like to take over the settings? Since you want to, suppose you want to schedule the refresh as a different email address, anybody can take over that particular data set. Okay, you can click on take over, and now what happens is when you take over the settings for this data set, you will need to provide credentials. So taking over means unless or until you wouldn't have access, you cannot take over. Okay, so it's only that when you are taking over, that means you also have the access to that particular SharePoint list or SharePoint files or SharePoint location, right? Only then you can take over. So when you click on this, now it's come to your ID and you can see it is trying to authenticate this SharePoint. You can see there's a circle happening. So if it is not happening, it will be in a cross. Now, if it is failing, you will be seeing a cross. You cannot move further to the schedule refresh. The first thing is that the data source credentials has to be successfully authenticated. That means your data source as having access here. So once this step is clear, this will be highlighted. Otherwise, this won't be highlighted. Okay. So that means automatically it has picked your Power BI service credentials and SharePoint credentials are also same credentials. Hence, it automatically try to refresh from its end. And otherwise, what you have to do is you have to click on edit credentials. This window will pop up and you have to click on this drop down and you have to always select OAuth2 is a standard method. Okay. Remember this. It should not be anonymous. It should be OAuth or two is the standard. And then out of these four options, it should be organizational. These are the two standard options that you have to select and click on sign in. So that will again, kind of sign in from this pop up, and then it signs in. So that's how you have to do if it is not happening automatically. So once it is done, it will say SharePoint data source updated, right? And you can also see the cross mark going off. Right now we have not seen any cross mark, but what happens usually is the cross mark will be there if you are not logged in. So once you do this step of edit credentials and signing in, that then the cross mark will go off. So then this schedule refresh will be highlighted. Otherwise it will be in a dull state where you cannot see this highlighted. Now it's highlighted. Now you can go back and keep your data up to date. You can turn this on. You can configure the schedule, refresh schedule. So once I turn it on, it says refresh frequency is daily or weekly. The weekly you can say it every day, sometime, some time zone it's automatically on a weekly basis or daily basis, like what do you want? Like you have specific timestamps, something like that. You can do it. You can also add this zone as I told you, right? You can add. So one more thing is that since this is a pro license, right? You can see that the license type is a pro. So we'll be talking about the licenses in detail in another topic. But for now, you understood that for a pro license, you can only refresh 8 times per day. Okay, you can refresh only 8 times per day, like this, like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You cannot refresh more than that. You can see, cannot go more than that. So when you have a premium license, you can go up to 48 times per day. 48 times per day is nothing but like almost half an hour, right? Half an hour, 30 minutes each time you can refresh per 24 hours. So 48 times it can increase to premium license. All right. So that is one thing you have to remember in the schedule refresh. So this is all about the cloud-based, data source. That's where you can see. So what happens to the on-premises data sources? So on-premises data sources are the ones. Anybody know what is exactly an on-premise data source?
On-premise data source is nothing but
Mm-hmm.
uh,
Malika, go ahead.
yeah. So on-premise data source is nothing but like you have it physically on your office where
Exactly.
you are located. It's whereas cloud it is you can access it from anywhere. But when it is an on-premise one, you have your own security firewall system in order to protect those. So everything will be there. You can handle it manually if it is an on-premise data source.
Absolutely, you're right, Malika, 100%. Anybody else want to add anything? Kalpana?
Yeah, SharePoint is within the organization. We can access it
Share.
within the team members.
Mm, not exactly, because SharePoint is something which is on the cloud. Of course, both of them can be handled within the team members. But again, if you have access, your SharePoint can be accessed via cloud. Like as you can see, the SharePoint that I'm giving you access can be accessed from here, right? SharePoint.
Yeah.
So it's like anywhere, but on-premise is something which is sitting physically on a specific machine. For example, I could say I have a SQL Server database. This is my SQL Server database. So this is an
Mm-hmm.
on-premises database where it is sitting on my machine. You getting my point?
Okay.
You do not have
Yeah.
access to this, even though you have the credentials. This is an SQL Server database (DB), where physical database it's not on the cloud, right? It's not a cloud-based one. It's a on-premises one, I could say, physically
Yeah.
situated on a
Yeah.
different server. So that's the main difference. So physically, it will be sitting on my machine, and in order to access, you need to have a physical access to it. So when you are building a report based out of this, okay, when
Mm.
you are building a report based out of on-premises, then what happens? On-premises could be anything. Like any other examples of on-premises DB? So I call this as on-premises.
Azure,
So mhm.
Azure,
Anyone
See,
can.
anything can be
Azure
on.
data. Any data.
Any
Santosh,
database, any
yes.
database which is on a specific machine, I can call it as on-premises.
On
On
premises.
In the Excel sheet, the Excel, suppose I'm building a report based upon some Excel file, which is on my machine again. Okay.
Mhm.
So what is that data source?
SharePoint.
On-premise source.
On premise.
It's on-premise, right? So unless and
Yes,
until you
on premise.
upload that Excel file to a SharePoint, then it becomes a cloud or SharePoint. But before I upload, if I'm directly pointing out to an Excel which is just sitting on my machine, then it is an on-premises again. Okay, so on-premises comes like, it can be files, it can be Excel files, it can be DBs, databases, right? Any other softwares that are sitting on a physical different server or different machines. So that's where you call it as an on-premises database. So if you talk about the data sources, right? We have several data sources, right? Several data sources. So when we talk about cloud-based, there are only like, some of them are cloud-based, like OData, right? We've seen like IMDb or
Yeah.
Northwind, which is again on the cloud. So all of them,
Yes.
for all of them, what happens is you don't require any data gateway. So we're coming to data gateway now. So data gateway is something which is required. Suppose I spoke to you about SharePoint and we schedule this refresh. So here we didn't need any data gateway, okay, to authenticate this or to log into this. But for on-premises databases, we require the data gateway, okay, because it doesn't know how to configure. So let us do one thing. Let us just uh, try to create a report which is based upon a SQL server. Maybe I will download which is already there. Let me just. You remember, right? In my initial sessions, I showed you how to connect to a SQL server.
Yeah.
So when you connect to a SQL server, I'm just thinking like, what is my credentials? Let me just check. I've saved it somewhere.
It's the same one, right, Santosh? The student R4K5, that one?
No, this is the SQL server, right?
that time it did not connect properly. Actually, yeah. Actually, it connected, but you did not give any credentials for that.
It's on my on-premises, right? I cannot give you directly. So yeah, have it offline. Yeah. So yeah, even though I give you, don't. I mean, you cannot actually log into my SQL Server DB because it's on-premises, right? It's not a cloud-based
Yeah.
environment. Yeah. So that's the reason I've not given you. So yeah, I just downloaded a report from my already existing report. So let me just go back, just open up the report so that what I'm now doing is already a connection setup with this SQL Server because you already know how to connect to a SQL Server database. I think the person who has given the demo for the data sources
Yeah. I
pretty
know. I
much
know.
aware. Kalpana should be pretty much aware.
Yes.
Others, if you are not remembering, you have to go through that video again. Just open up. It's pretty much simple, I guess, right? I mean, you have to go to get data, like any other data source, select the SQL
Yeah.
Server database,
SQL
and provide
database.
information like
Yeah.
if you have credentials, the server name, ID, password. You are
Mm.
ready to log into your database. Your databases can be anything. Like right now, you can see 4 different databases. Like the database symbol is like this one. You have AdventureWorks database, Contest detail database, gaming database. So there's 4 different databases that you have. You can also mention a specific database that you want to access to by logging in. So if I go to transform data, go to data source settings, it will show up the connection. Like you can see, this is it is connecting to the server name is desktop MI. Let me show you. The server name is
Yeah.
desktop MI. Like you can see, 14 BHA, and the database that is connected to AdventureWorks. This particular report. Okay, AdventureWorks. So we can see this report is connected to this particular database, right? And you can actually update anything there, and you can see the any updates on from there. So right now this report is connecting here, and let's see what happens when I publish this report to same Guru Schools workspace. Okay, let me just publish. I've selected Guru Schools workspace, and since student ID has all access for Guru Schools workspace, let me go from here. You have to see the success message before we go on. Okay, I'm seeing the success message. Now it's already there. Now you can see demo underscore SQL server, and I'm coming back to the data set. I'm clicking on the. You can also go to three dots and go to settings. Sorry, it's not showing up here. Okay, let me click on schedule refresh. Okay, so as you can see now, do you see something else? Some different.
Yeah, we don't see email, and all those gateway connections are all in light now. They are not dark. They are not highlighted.
You can see this one.
So when
So let me also just show you from this screen. Guru School. Yeah. You can see it's a new one, and I can see here you are able to see the settings.
settings.
Why?
Yeah.
Because I am the owner. Because I am the one who has published, and you have not published it. So anyways, you have some issues because you won't be able to access the SQL server. So it's fine. Now you can see there is few more things like gateway option is enabled, parameters enabled, but again data source settings is not enabled, schedule refresh is not enabled. Okay. So what it is saying is this data set has been configured by this, one or more cloud data sources data have been deleted. Okay. It is asking us to create the data source. Okay. Or else it's saying it's unable to find the data source. Right. So because this is an on-premises database, we cannot actually directly see the data source. We have to first set up a data source on the cloud, and then setting up a data source on the cloud is something like using a gateway. So what is a gateway? Gateway comes into picture here. Okay. So what is a gateway? A gateway is something like, we have understood what is an on-premises database, right? So once we have understood on-premises database, if somebody wants to connect it to, see, what I can say, in an organization, definitely maybe your company might have invested in a SQL Server database. Okay, they have come up with some server. We have a database server sitting on a physical machine. Server name is XYZ, and we have all the data sitting there. And as a developer, they have given you the access, and you have created a Power BI report pointing to that, just like me. Okay, I have created a Power BI report pointing to my server. Now I'm going to publish this report to my Power BI service, and all the business users want to see the latest data, right? The same scenario. So how do they do that? So they cannot install all the SQL servers on all the business users machine, and they cannot ask them to download the PBX file and refresh here, isn't it? The whole purpose of Power BI service will be gone, right? So for that, what we do is we'll not do anything on the we'll not reinstall any SQL Server database on any other machine. What we do is we kind of install something on the machine where the SQL Server is sitting on. Okay, that means wherever your on-premises database is sitting, we'll install there another software called Data Gateway and configure it so that it will pick up the on-premises data. It is acting like a mediator. It's acting like a gate between your on-premises database and the cloud. So what happens is it will authenticate whatever credentials you are going to put in very securely, very secured fashion, and it connects to your on-premises database. It will pick up your data. It will run the queries onto your on-premises database. It will pick up the data, and then it will pass it onto the cloud. And from there, from the cloud, your report will be picking up the data, and your report will be showing up in your Power BI service. Is the process clear?
Yes, Santosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now I'm going to show what exactly all this is. Let me. So before, yeah, we move on, we need to understand what is a Power BI gateway. Like Power BI gateway. So initially, in my very initial session, I showed you, like, I showed you one more thing. I should click down. Okay, I showed you this particular screen. If you remember, I explained you Power BI desktop, Power BI mobile. I explained all the
Yes.
things. I also spoke about this particular part.
Yeah, on premises data gateway. Yeah.
Yeah. So keep your dashboards and reports up to date by connecting to your on-premises data sources without the need to move the data. So the same thing I'm telling, without the need to move the data. So we just install this particular software onto the machine where your on-premises data is there, on-premises database is there, and then we are able to get the data onto the cloud. So there are two types of data gateways. One is based upon standard mode, the other one is personal mode. Standard mode is something which you are supposed you have a same example I'm taking. Your organization has a SQL server sitting on a particular machine. If you wanted to, you know, install a data gateway, you are supposed to install a standard mode because the standard mode can be logged in with multiple users, right? Where the personal mode is only able to log in with a single user. You cannot give access to the other user. So obviously, in an organization, you wanted to share across the report with multiple developers where they can configure the data set, they can schedule the refresh when you are absent, right? So standard mode is recommended in an organization. If you are installing a personal mode, you are not going to share with any other user, and if you are it's just for your learning purpose, you are not going to share it. You are the only user. Then you can go with personal mode. That is the only difference. Okay. Can click on this option Power BI Gateway and you can see what it all can do. Like for example, this is a Power BI Gateway. It says your gateway, one gateway for all your cloud services. Install once and deploy multiple on-premises data connections across Power BI, Power Apps. So there are other tools which also help. Not only Power BI gets benefited by the data gateway, there are other tools, Power Apps, Power Automate, Azure Logic Apps. Every other tool gets benefited by this gateway, right? Install once and deploy multiple on-premises data connections. So it's like you install it on your machine, and you can connect any other data sources like any other databases, so that you can read from through this particular machine. Okay. So usually in a real-time scenario, I'm just giving an additional input here. In a real-time scenario, your on-premises database, where I've given you an example of SQL Server, is always turned on. That machine will not be turned off. Hope people have already worked, might have been aware of it, isn't it? Your database, your original database, where it is sitting on a machine, that machine will not be turned off. Basically, they will call it as a server. The server is always running. Okay. Since we are demonstrating in our local machine, right now we are not, we just demonstrated and we'll close this machine off. But in general, what happens is, in real time, in the organization, wherever the database is there, that machine will be always turned on, and your data will be always on. The gateway will be running and the data will be always putting it to the cloud. Okay. So then it's an easy setup. Like it says, download and install the gateway with minimal interaction. Then sign in with your organization account to register the gateway to be used by closes. It's very easy to install. Okay. And then we have something called secured access to data. So again, this is a key thing. That's where people use data gateway. So data transfer between Power BI and the on-premises data gateway is very much secured through Azure Service Bus. So there's some internal thing happening about the security aspect. It is using something called Azure Service Bus, where the credentials provided by gateway administrators are encrypted to help protect your information in the cloud and only decrypted on the gateway machine. Okay. There's some security happening. Even the credentials are encrypted and decrypted. Okay. So this is all about the data gateway. You can also learn more clicking on this link to understand from the administrator perspective what exactly it does. You can see this is a symbolization that is giving. It is connected to on-premises data sources, and it is trying to act like a gateway between this cloud and on-premises databases, where it can link it up, like you can see two-way arrow, like there's a communication between two-way, very much securely, and it is between multiple users can access that. Types of data gateway, you can learn more if you want anything from here. Okay, so let's go back and now configure it. So in order to configure it, we need to have that particular data gateway installed on our machine, right? So what I do is I'll click on this standard mode, and you can see the download happening. If you select the download path, click on save. You can see it's 439 MB, close to 500 MB, and it's downloading. And once it is done, I'll show you. It's very easy to set up. It's configuring, and once it is configured, we should be able to see something over here. This is a data gateway connection. So as you can see, I'm just expanded this gateway connection. So in order to demonstrate, I have deleted my gateway before starting this session. Okay, I've deleted the gateway. Otherwise, I had gateways installed earlier, which was called Santosh local machine, and I've configured it. So right now it says gateway or data source not reachable. Okay, you can see this is the old gateway that I've created, but it will not. It is not reachable now because it's not installed. It just updated, but it will fail because you can see the status is cross button because this was previously there. That's why it is showing up. Okay, now we're going to create a new one. So let me delete this personal gateway also. So once we install the new one, we should be able to see the new one here. Let's wait for it. I think the download is happening still. I think the the bandwidth is being taken away by the download. Similarly, a new option will show up. So when you recreate the data source from here, so first we have to configure. Let's wait for this to download. Still there. Once it is configured, we have to set up something from here. Like you can set a data source. So usually what happens is, I will show you the other option. So you have to set up some data source from cloud. So in the from app.powerbi.com, you can just go to home. Let me just tell you. You have this settings option, right? Yeah. So there's something called manage gateways here on the top right side. Then you click on manage gateways. Here you can create a data source. Like for example, you can see add a data source. So earlier you can see SQL. I've added some data source here. The same thing was showing up there because I've deleted it. Now it's not there. It's not showing up here. So we have to add a data source. So I'm going to add a new data source to a cluster. So basically, there's something called cluster. So cluster is something which you create once and add remaining data sources to it. You know, data gateways to it. Like multiple data gateways can be added to one cluster. So let's assume have a 3-4 different servers from your organization. One is SQL Server, one is Oracle database, one is XYZ. You can create 3 data gateways on those 3 machines, and those 3 data gateways can be added to one single cluster. Okay, a cluster can be single cluster like this. A cluster can be single cluster. So under one cluster, you can add multiple data gateways. So right now we have only one database, which is SQL Server, and I'm going to add that. For example, this is the old one. So once I install, I'm going to click on add data source and create a new data source like this. Okay, I'm going to add it. So let's wait for it. Let's wait for us to configure first. So before first thing you have to do is come here. So download has finished. You can see gateway installation is done. Just refresh this. Yeah. Okay, now this is done, and you can double click on this. It's just straightforward installation. Yeah, so then this pop-up is going somewhere. So as you can see, it will ask for you to install onto a particular path. You can just change it as per your requirement or can keep it standard. And then select this I accept the terms of use and privacy statement. Click on install. Just click on yes. Yes. Once it is done, you have to just sign in with the ID that you are logging in to your Power BI account. Like for example, this is the email address that I'm logging in, right? So I have to kind of configure with that same particular ID. Do you allow this app to make changes to the device? Yes. So once it is done, yeah, it's already done. Installation was successful. You can see this message. So it says email address to use this gateway. Okay, we need to use the same email address that we are logging into our Power BI service account. You need to click on sign in. So you have to enter that ID and you have to sign in so that it is configured after signing in. So let me just select admin. So basically, there's two things coming up here. So as you can see, first thing is register a new gateway on this computer, which we are going to do that right now. And the second one is the migrate, restore, or take over an existing gateway. It's something like if you wanted to migrate an existing gateway to a different machine, or if something like you are restoring a backed up data gateway, or you are trying to take over an existing gateway which is kind of logged in by some other user, that time you have to use this option. So that time it will ask for a separate key, recovery key, and all. Then you have to get those other data gateway onto your account. But right now we are going to create a new gateway. Click on next. Data gateway name. I'm going to create a new gateway name. Maybe I'll say Guru School Gateway. As I told you, right, I can add to an existing gateway. If you remember, there was an existing gateway cluster, right? I've showed you here. I called them the cluster name was Santosh Local Machine. It's a cluster name. So here it is showing up. You can add this to the existing gateway. So existing gateway cluster. So you can add it to the same cluster, or else you can create a new one. So it doesn't matter though. But again, you can always create a new gateway name, which is a respect of a gateway cluster, because that was the old cluster that I've created to add multiple gateways. So let us keep it separate. Let's keep it only the name of the gateway. And also you can create a recovery key. Like if you remember, just before step was showing you to migrate, restore and all that. So when you have a recovery key, it's easy to restore even if you lost the data, or if you deleted this accidentally. If you have a recovery key that can be recovered from cloud, I mean, so it's always suggestible to create a recovery key. So I'm just giving some key and click on configure. So I just given Guru School's gateway is my gateway name. Automatically this will be use some region. So automatically depending on the server availability, you can see best US region which is being used. So it's all admin related information. We need not go into deeper. So as you can see, there's a tick mark coming in a green color which says the gateway, Guru School's gateway, is online and ready to be used. Somebody is asking any question?
Yeah, I was asking. So there, on the previous screen, yours, I can see that recovery key. Recovery key is nothing but the password, right?
Exactly. Just like a password, it sometimes, usually it won't ask for any that recovery key anywhere, except you when you are wanting to restore that, or you're wanting to migrate into a different machine,
Mhm.
right? If you are losing it, if you wanted to get it back, you want the recovery key handy,
Okay.
kind of securing the gateway. So
Mhm.
it's kind of securing the gateway. Even if you lose it, you can bring it back using the recovery key. Okay. As I told you, your gateway is able to use for Power BI ready and Power Apps, Power Automate, and Logic Apps, Azure Analysis Services. So right now we are only talking about Power BI. So gateway is used for all of these other tools, but we're talking about Power BI. And there are other service settings which are, maybe you can restart sometimes if it is not working properly. Just click on restart now. It will, restart the services. These are all the additional administrator items which we don't touch it. It's all standard. And also you can set a new recovery key also, so that you can kind of have in handy another new recovery key. Because if you forget the key that you have given while setting up just before some time, you can also create a new recovery key for this one. Okay, before backing up to another machine. So since it's ready now, now let's go back to our Power BI service and try to create a new thing. Maybe I can say I'll add a new data source, or maybe just like a SQL Server data source. For example, you have to create a SQL Server and create a data source type as a SQL Server, and you have to provide a server details, which you already know, like server details from here. The server is this one, server name, and also the database name. So you can see the database name, Adventure Works, you have to give it, and also the authentication method is basic and ID and password. So we are going to add it new. This is old one, so let me create a new one and select a data source. I'll give it as a SQL, maybe demo, and data source type is SQL Server. Yeah. When you select this data source type, automatically it is expecting your server name. So your server name is this thing, right? You already know it. We can get it from here. The database is authentication is basic, and the password is this way, and I have to just check my password again. So just enter the password. But do not want to skip the test connection, because when I click on add, it will try to test this ID and password and try to check the connection is if it is happening from here or not. So when I click on this, to see this refresh happening, it says we could not register this data source, at least one of the gateway instances within the cluster. Okay, says it's unable to register this. What I'll do is just remove this. Maybe it's because of the gateway cluster, which we do not want it actually. One of gateway members need attention, and gateway version available for the operator. That's okay. And the users for cloud base. Basically, I didn't add. This is an old cluster. I think there's no option to delete this cluster. Have to go to admin settings. Just give me a moment. Okay, I think now it is showing up. Can you see it? It's a new cluster. Default cluster has just come up. Now it is showing up because it was not reflecting. I'm trying to create a data source in a different cluster. Basically, Guru School's gateway is the one which we have created. So you can see automatically the cluster is created. So I have to add a data source to this not to this. So now when I create it, demo, now it will come up. Then if the don't works, then we can applicate it back. Oh, sorry. Now I'll do the same thing, and now it should be success message. Oh, what's the issue? I think I'm entering the password rightly. Let me double check the password. I'm just checking the password again. Yeah, password thing.
Yeah, it's giving invalid connection credentials. Login.
The password. Let's see. Yeah, got it. So I think I'll update my notes because I'm using the old one. Mention secrets of password. Password as on May 2nd, 2022. Updated. There are too many credentials. I mean, too many logins, too many websites I'm handling. So many passwords. I keep forgetting. So I forgot to update that. So there are multiple passwords. So yeah, so it was a password issue. As you can see now, you can see this connection successful. So since this data source is set up now, right? I've come to this manage gateways and set up the data source. You have to go back to your Guru Schools workspace and try to schedule your repro. And when you go back to the SQL server, you can see there's a gateway connection option, and you can see there's a new one which is coming, Guru Schools gateway, and there's you can see they're running on desktop. Since I've set up the data source over there, you can see the green color and the tick mark. All you have to do is you just select the data source SQL underscore demo and the drop down. Once you select that, there's an option called apply. That means now you have an established connection, right? You can see you have selected this option of this gateway. Use this gateway and use this particular data source, which is actually pointing out to that particular gateway. So this is always running. You can see in general what happens is this is always running on your server, physical server, where your on-premises data gateway is there. That will always be running. Okay, so that because as I told you, that server will never be turned off. So there, your database will be running. Your data gateway that you have installed will be always running. So only then your this thing will work and directly connect to it. So now we have a data source connecting there. Now you can see this is enabled. And also you can see admin has granted access, credentials are not required because the access is given here. Okay, that's what it's saying is credentials are not required, and you can go ahead and schedule the refresh. Earlier it was not showing up, right? You cannot. Now you can do the refresh schedule. Okay. I just given 2 times per day and just applied it, and you can see the schedule refresh has been done, and I can see next refresh and so on so time. Successfully I was able to schedule the refresh. And when you go back to the workspace, you should be able to see the next refresh timestamp here. This will come only after scheduling is done. Right. So you can also schedule, I mean, on-demand refresh like this one, right? You can also refresh now. So that means you are running a query right now, which is going via data gateway and which is hitting the database, SQL Server database, and it's trying to refresh the data. It's 629, right? Now it will be changing to somewhere in 658 or 659. see this 58. So it means it's ran a query and your report has refreshed with your data set has refreshed. Basically, it has got all the latest data. So if your database is updating, maybe let's say your DB is updating. If you open up your AdventureWorks database, or if you look at any other table, like any customers table, if some new record has been inserted just 1 minute back, since you have refreshed the data now, that new record would have been shown up in your latest data and your Power BI service. You're getting my point, right? So this is the entire data gateway setup. So it's pretty straightforward, and the configuration is as simple as here. So any more questions on the data gateway? Right.
Not right now anything, Santosh, but if we follow the video,
Okay.
next time we will get.
Okay. How are you feeling? Like, is it complex or is it difficult? What are you feeling?
For me, it's been so it's so complex. One question: these are all first time problems, means credentials, all things.
This only one-time problems, and also I can say, see, most of this I can say is kind of an admin-related activity. But as a Power BI developer, you should be aware of it. Some people, because when you say you worked on so-and-so report as a standalone report developer, your interviewer will ask questions like, because there is a lot of concept involved here. Because your interviewer will check your knowledge, saying that my data source is coming from this. Like, how do you schedule the report? You simply ask that. So then, if you're not talking about all this process, they'll say you have never actually configured a report. You don't know the difference between an on-premises. Like, you have now not really worked. You are kind of faking. So this is a real-time scenario where when you understand this concept, you can confidently say, like, what is the difference between a cloud-based data source and other data source, and then you'll understand, okay, this is what we need. The interviewer also get confidence on you that, okay, this person knows in and out of Power BI.
So what we learned in SharePoint on-premises data source is like within the Power BI. This is something kind of different in database. That's what you. So that's what I got confused when you asked me. So what exactly going on?
Yeah, so it's not about
Yeah, now I
database.
got it.
It's about on-premises
Yeah.
data. It's about on-premises data source, right? It can be
Yeah, which sits on local computer or any
it can
other
be anything.
local
It can be an Excel file.
Yeah.
It can be any other data which is not, see, for any data source, for anything you need an credentials, right? So
Yeah,
suppose,
we need.
yeah. So some data sets are on your local machine. You have an CSV file, you have an Excel file, you have a SQL Server
Yes.
database, you have an other, there are so many other databases which are on premises, which are
Yes.
authenticated separately on application base. So they are sitting on a different machine. So for them, in order to bring them onto this, synchronization, bring onto the schedule refresh, because unless or until you don't refresh the data regularly, there's no use of creating your report, right? So definitely that is required. So for that, you need data gateway.
Okay. But Santosh, what you did everything just now regarding SQL and all, how do we need to, see this video and understand what's going on? Because we may not able to connect to SQL data here. So like how we, practically, how we can do this if we want to practice.
Okay, what I can suggest is you can try to create something based upon, you can create a folder on your desktop. You can you can save an Excel file over there, and try to set up a gateway for accessing the Excel file. Just do some research, whichever I've told you, that knowledge works actually.
Okay.
So,
okay.
See, I told you Excel is also a data source, right? Which is which will be kind of an on-premises.
Yeah.
Same thing. Like, if let's assume your data sources, you have an Excel sheet where you are updating that Excel sheet on a daily basis. Maybe you are updating the data, and your manager asked you to create a report on that Excel sheet, you have created it. But that Excel sheet is being updated by you on your machine on a daily basis, and you have to keep it, up to date. So then you need an data gateway, right? So just try it out and come up with some questions, everybody. Because as you said, SQL Server database is not, installed on everybody's machine. Okay, you can just try it out. How the same method, like install the gateway, configure, add data source. Okay, and try to configure. Like for example, I'll just give you another int here. So when you're installing it, go to manage gateway. Gateway again, add an Excel file to this particular Guru Schools gateway, or else create your own new, install the new gateway, give a new name, and from student ID you will be having access. When you give an Excel file, you will kind of give something like this. Like I told you, right? There is something called, you can give anything name here, but in the data source type, I've selected SQL Server for SQL. For Excel, I will be selecting file. File, and you will be giving a path from your local machine. For example, this might be your Kalpana
drive,
your drive, yeah. So maybe there you might need to provide some Windows credentials, or some credentials which basically you might ask your computer credential.
Got it.
Got it, right? So similarly, you set it up and try it out, and let's see. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, then I think this is it for today. Anybody, any questions before we wrap it up? I know it's a little bit of admin related kind of activity. Unless or until you do a little bit demonstration or practice, you will understand.
Like it's not completely clear. Like we understood, but until unless we do it, we won't get it.
Just write down a few points, like when you again revise, right? While you revise it, write down a few points saying that what is a data gateway. Write down in one single line whatever you understand. Why it is required? Why do you think it is required? Why it is necessary? What happens if it is not there? So then you will understand what is the purpose of it, and then you understand like how to set up it. It's simple. Like first step is to install directly, download from, how to download it. Once you download it, directly install like any other file. Once you install it, you know how to sign in. You just need to have this. You already have a student ID and password. Just sign in. That's it. Once it is done, in order to use that on your cloud, on your Power BI service, you know where to go. I asked you to go to gateway, click on manage gateways, and then when you click on manage gateways, there you can kind of add a data source, so that you can use this from there to here. Getting my point? So once you add a data source of the respective one, you can kind of use that particular data gateway, because you have already signed in with your ID. It will show up there, isn't it? That's where you are able to see there. So then we are trying to integrate between both of them, and then we are scheduling. That is a separate thing. Scheduling, you know already. So these are the key steps of data gateway. So try to configure, do it again from your end, and let's see. If you have any questions, we can revise it again. Don't worry.
So the gateway that you have created, you said cluster, right?
Yes, Sandhya.
That we can use, or we need to create our own?
When you install it, right, you can install it and add it to the existing gateway, but I suggest you to create a new one, because if there is an option to add it directly. You can see that Guru School's gateway coming up. There's a check mark. I showed you an option. Add it to the existing gateway. You can add that particular new gateway to here.
Okay.
You can add it. Otherwise, you can
To our
create
local
underscore
machine.
name. Yeah, underscore Sandhya. You can create, so that everybody's gateway is different, so that you can see. Try to do it, so that we'll get a clear picture of that.
Okay.
Because what happens is, when you do even the underscore Sandhya, you are creating with the student ID, so you can see it is coming to the one single ID, but multiple gateways comes up. That's fine, because everybody is using the same student ID. Okay. Once you repeat it, it will be easy. Don't think of it much. Just implement it. Go through the video. Do it as a demonstration. Okay.
Yeah. So as Santosh said, right, whatever he's teaching right now, it's just only for the informational purposes. Once you join on the job, you'll get a standard operational procedure. Like they'll give you a template of it. So in that Word document, you'll find each and everything step by step procedure. How do you do all these things? So it's like till the interview process, we have to handle this one. Like we need to know what exactly we are doing.
Yeah, so they will be providing you the organizational database. Like for example, they are using some Oracle database. They give you the complete server names, database or credentials. So
How to
they do
connect
that.
everything, each step by step
Yeah.
with the pictures, like everything you'll get it. But only the thing is, you should have the initial understanding of what it is. That's it.
Okay, just do it. If you have any doubts, you can talk to it again. I understand this is kind of a little administrative tasks. It looks like a little bit complicated, but it's not as complicated as we think. Okay, when you apply it, write down the process. I suggest you to write down the steps so that you understand what first, what is the second, what is the third step. So you kind of get a lot of clarity. Okay, separate things out.
Yes.
So one is installing it separately. Second one is configuring it on app.powerbi.com, which is a Power BI service. Third thing is scheduling. So separate them out and then try to work on it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll share the video, guys. We'll wrap it up for now. We'll see you in the next session.
Thank you, Santosh.
Thank you,
Okay.
Santosh.
Okay, Santosh. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Bye.